This video contains themes of stalking, sexual assault, abduction, and psychological abuse. Viewer discretion is advised. Before we begin, I want to make something clear. No AI has been used to write or narrate this video. Everything you're about to hear has been researched, written, and narrated by me, a real human. Let's get into it. It's June 2017. 26-year-old Jessica Nordquist is preparing to start a completely new life. She's leaving New York and moving thousands of miles away to London. This isn't an impulsive decision. She has secured a job as a solutions engineer at a video advertising company called Unravel. The company is based in Whitechapel, East London, and they've helped organise her relocation from the United States. For Jessica, Britain represents a fresh start, a new country, a new job, new colleagues, and an entirely new life. Within weeks of arriving in London, Jessica meets Mark Weeks. Mark works at the same company. It's July 2017, and Jessica has only been living in Britain for around a month. The two begin spending time together, and eventually their relationship becomes more than professional. They start dating, but it's not a particularly long relationship. Around 3 months later, in November 2017, Mark decides he doesn't want to continue with the relationship anymore. Jessica, however, appears to want something more serious. And so, just months after arriving in Britain, Jessica finds herself dealing with the end of a relationship in a country that is still relatively new to her. At first, there is nothing about this situation that sounds particularly unusual. Two colleagues meet, they become involved. One person wants to continue with the relationship and the other doesn't, and then they break up. Except, Jessica and Mark can't simply disappear from each other's lives. They still work together. They still have colleagues in common. Their professional lives remain connected. And over the weeks that follow, the situation between them becomes increasingly difficult. Messages begin being exchanged. Emotions are running high. And then, Jessica tells Mark something that completely changes the situation. She's pregnant. And according to Jessica, the baby is his. For Mark, what seemed like the end of a short-term relationship has suddenly become something much more complicated. Because whether or not he wants to be with Jessica, if she's carrying his child, the two of them are now connected in a completely different way. And Jessica's situation is about to become even more distressing. She later says that she's lost the baby. What began as an ordinary workplace relationship has now ended with a breakup, a pregnancy, and an apparent miscarriage. But this is only the beginning. The situation between them is becoming increasingly hostile. Jessica begins making serious allegations about Mark. She says that he has raped her. These are not accusations being kept privately between the two of them. Emails concerning Mark and his private life begin reaching other people, including senior colleagues at the company where they both work. For Mark, the consequences are potentially enormous. For Jessica, however, these allegations paint a very different picture of what has happened since she arrived in Britain. What initially looked like a short workplace romance, followed by a difficult breakup, is beginning to look considerably more disturbing. As weeks pass, communication surrounding the situation continues. Messages, emails, social media accounts, more allegations. The dispute is no longer contained between two former partners. Other people are being pulled into it. The workplace is being pulled into it. And by early 2018, there appears to be a growing conflict surrounding Jessica and the man she once dated. Then, in April, something happens that makes everything before it seem almost insignificant. People close to Jessica receive an email, but it doesn't appear to have been written by her. The sender claims to be a representative of a criminal organisation, and they say they have Jessica. Attached to the email are photographs. When the recipients open them, they see the 26-year-old stripped naked. Her hands are restrained, she's gagged. She appears completely helpless. The messages contain horrific claims about what is supposedly being done to her. Jessica has allegedly been sexually assaulted. There are claims that her fingers have been broken. And whoever is sending these messages appears to want Jessica's family, friends and colleagues to know exactly what is happening to her. Jessica herself isn't answering. Nobody seems to know where she is, so police are called. Officers head to her home in Whitechapel. When they arrive, there are signs that something serious may have happened there. The flat appears disturbed, and there's something else. Something has been left on Jessica's front door. A note. It's a kidnapping note. The Metropolitan Police have to treat the situation seriously. Jessica could be somewhere in London. She could already have been taken outside the city. And if the claims being made by whoever has her are true, she could be in immediate danger. But investigators now have to answer a very basic question. Where is Jessica? Investigators begin examining her flat. At first glance, it appears that something has happened there. But forensic examination begins raising questions about whether the disturbance inside the property is consistent with a genuine struggle. The scene appears almost constructed, and suddenly, the kidnapping note on the front door becomes important for a different reason. Because somebody has physically placed it there. The question is who? Police also begin examining Jessica's digital activity. Phones can leave trails, emails leave trails, and even when somebody tries not to be found, modern technology can make disappearing completely extremely difficult. Gradually, investigators begin picking up a trail, but it isn't leading them towards a warehouse, an isolated property, or somewhere in London where Jessica may be being held. It's heading north, far north, outside of London, out of England entirely, towards Scotland. Eventually, the search begins focusing on Aviemore, a small town in the Scottish Highlands, hundreds of miles away from Jessica's home in Whitechapel. And there, police identify a bed and breakfast. They have reason to believe the missing 26-year-old woman could be inside. At this point, nobody knows what condition she's going to be in. Remember what the messages have claimed. Jessica has supposedly been kidnapped, sexually assaulted, physically injured, photographed while naked and restrained. If she's inside this building, officers could potentially be walking into a location where a kidnapping victim is being held. Police enter, and they find a woman. She's alive. She's apparently physically safe, and she looks like Jessica. But when officers speak to her, something strange happens. She gives them a different name. The woman they've travelled hundreds of miles to find appears to be denying that she's Jessica, and then she asks to use the bathroom. What happens next changes the direction of the entire investigation, because police discover that 2 mobile phones have been discarded in the toilet bin. The missing woman is alive. There is no criminal gang surrounding her. Nobody appears to be guarding her, and rather than immediately identifying herself to the officers who have been searching for her, she has given a false name. Now, police are not simply asking who kidnapped Jessica. They are beginning to ask a much more uncomfortable question. What if nobody did? Investigators begin to believe that the situation wasn't the aftermath of an abduction at all. It had all been staged. And the same conclusion is beginning to emerge about the photographs. Police believe Jessica has posed for them herself. The kidnapping note, the disturbed flat, the photographs, the messages supposedly coming from the people holding her. According to investigators, they were not separate pieces of evidence pointing towards a kidnapping. They were parts of the same fabrication. Jessica hadn't been kidnapped. Police believed she had staged her own abduction, and that discovery creates a much bigger problem. Why? Why would a 26-year-old woman move hundreds of miles away, photograph herself bound and gagged, and convince her own family, friends and colleagues that she was being tortured? And why had she apparently tried to dispose of phones when police finally located her? Investigators begin looking backwards, back before the disappearance, back before the photographs, back to the breakup with Mark Weeks. And suddenly, events that had previously appeared to show Jessica as the victim begin to look very different. Remember the pregnancy? Jessica had told Mark that she was carrying his child. She later claimed that she'd lost the baby. Police now examine that part of the story as well, and they discover a purchase made online from Amazon, a fake silicone pregnancy belly. The pregnancy hadn't simply been exaggerated. According to prosecution, Jessica had bought a prosthetic bump and used it to convince Mark that she was pregnant. And that isn't the only thing investigators uncover. There are SIM cards, multiple phone numbers, fake identities, and more than 20 fake Instagram accounts connected to the campaign of messages surrounding Mark and the people they worked with. The entire story is beginning to turn upside down. Because Mark Weeks, the former boyfriend Jessica had accused of rape, the man whose private life had been circulated around their workplace, is no longer simply someone police needs to consider when investigating what happened to Jessica. Investigators are now beginning to realise that Mark may have been the victim all along. When investigators begin to put it all together, they're able to reconstruct just how elaborate Jessica's deception had become. But even after being confronted with the evidence, Jessica is not about to simply admit what she's done. Instead, when the case eventually reaches court, she will offer another extraordinary explanation for what has happened to her. According to Jessica, the kidnapping was real, and the person responsible wasn't Mark Weeks. She claimed she was abducted by someone else entirely, an MI5 agent. By the time the case reaches court, Jessica is no longer the victim of a kidnapping. She is the defendant. And prosecutors have built a large case alleging that the kidnapping was just one part of a much larger campaign against Mark Weeks. But Jessica has an explanation. She maintains that she was really kidnapped, just not the way that police believe. According to Jessica, the person who abducted her was an MI5 agent. She claims that this man took her from London and transported her hundreds of miles north to Scotland. And according to Jessica's version of events, this supposed intelligence agent is responsible for what happened to her. It's an extraordinary claim, because if Jessica is telling the truth, police have not uncovered an elaborate fake kidnapping. They've completely misunderstood one. But prosecutors have evidence that creates some very difficult questions for her. There are the photographs of Jessica bound and gagged. There is a scene inside her flat. There is a kidnapping note. There are the phones found after police locate her in Aviemore. There are the SIM cards. And there is a wider digital trail investigators say connects Jessica to the fake accounts used during the campaign against Mark. Then, there is her behaviour when police finally find her. Jessica doesn't immediately tell officers that she's the missing woman they've been searching for. She gives a false name. And when she goes to the bathroom, 2 mobile phones are subsequently discovered in the toilet bin. For the prosecution, the explanation is much simpler. There is no mysterious MI5 agent. There is no criminal organisation. Jessica has created the entire kidnapping herself. And the more investigators examine her life, the more evidence they find of deception. The pregnancy she claimed after Mark ended their relationship. Police discover the online purchase of the fake pregnancy belly. Prosecutors say that Jessica staged the photographs herself and travelled to Scotland, while police and those close to her believed that she was in danger. And now the case is no longer really about kidnapping, it's about stalking. Because prosecutors argue that everything we've seen throughout the story, the messages, the allegations, the fake identities, and eventually the disappearance, formed part of a prolonged campaign targeting Mark Weeks. Jessica denies the charges, the case goes to trial, and in October 2018, a jury at Snaresbrook Crown Court is asked to decide which version of the events it believes, Jessica's version or the prosecution's. The jury reaches its verdict: guilty. Jessica is convicted of 2 counts of stalking, causing serious alarm or distress, 2 counts of malicious communications, and perverting the course of public justice. But there is still one question hanging around the entire case. Why? Why go this far over a relationship that lasted 3 months? Why invent pregnancies? Why create identities? Why make accusations capable of destroying someone's life? And why stage something as extreme as your own kidnapping? Even the detectives who investigated Jessica struggled to give one definitive answer. And when she returns to court for the sentencing in December 2018, the judge is going to have to decide what punishment fits one of the strangest stalking campaigns to come before British courts. It's now December 12th, 2018. Jessica is 27 years old. She is sentenced to 4.5 years in prison. And because she's an American citizen, the court is told she will also face deportation from the United Kingdom after serving her sentence. An indefinite restraining order is imposed, preventing her from contacting Mark, members of his family, and specified members of staff from their former workplace. It seems like this should finally be the end of it. Jessica is in prison. Mark is protected by a court order. The fake accounts have been exposed. Kidnapping has been exposed. The pregnancy has been exposed. And for the first time in more than a year, Mark should be able to move on with his life. Except, according to Mark, the contact does not completely stop. In February 2019, several months after Jessica's sentence, Mark speaks publicly about what has happened to him, and he reveals something disturbing. He says that he's still receiving letters that he believes are coming from Jessica, from inside prison. By this point, the effect on Mark's life is profound. He removes himself from social media. After experiencing a campaign built partly through fake accounts, anonymous identities and online messages, he no longer wants the same digital presence he had before. But interestingly, Mark doesn't simply call for Jessica to be locked away and forgotten. He begins talking about something much wider: cyberstalking. Because what happened to him demonstrates just how easily one person can appear to become many people online. One person can create an account, then another, different photographs, different usernames, different phone numbers. And suddenly the person being targeted doesn't necessarily know who they're actually communicating with. Mark argues that social media companies need to take greater responsibility for making that kind of behaviour more difficult. He also talks about rehabilitation, because from his perspective, prison doesn't necessarily resolve obsessive behaviour, and his own experience appears to prove his point. Jessica is behind bars. There is an indefinite restraining order, and Mark still believes she's finding a way to reach him. It's an unsettling ending to an already bizarre case. So what happened to Jessica and Mark after the case was over? On 12th December 2018, Jessica was sentenced to 4.5 years in prison, 2 years and 6 months relating to the stalking offences, the further 2 years for staging the kidnapping and perverting the courts of justice. Her sentences for malicious communications ran concurrently. We don't know where Jessica is today. There appears to be very little reliable public information about Jessica's life after prison. And for Mark, we do know a little more about what happened immediately afterwards. Mark briefly spoke about cyberstalking and social media before withdrawing from social media and the public eye. And that's where we're going to leave the case today. Thank you so much for watching. and especially if you've made it all the way to the end. I'd really like to know what you think about this one. At which point did you realise something wasn't quite right with Jessica's story? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and consider subscribing. Thanks again for watching. Take care and I'll see you in the next one.